Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butchester, and you guys know what I like to do on my show. Say it with me. I want to enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on a fire. And that's what we want to do today. We want to get you fired up about my guest. I'll be spending time with Rashad Gibson today, and we'll be talking about his book, Poetry Power: How to Find Your Personal Power and Overcome Adversity Using Journaling, Affirmations, and Poetry. So go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Hello, Rashad. Thank you so much for joining me here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Hey, Doc. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, as is tradition here, we always give our guests an opportunity to introduce themselves to perhaps those few folks out there that might be unfamiliar with you or your work. So first question, tell us a little bit about yourself. What makes you you?
I am a rose amidst sunflowers hued as a dandelion. I was raised amongst sunflowers and hued as a dandelion, and that's Rashad, poetically, broken down into an acronym. I am a father, self-published author, former type 1 diabetic, and I like to encourage people to get their faith on fleek.
Now, being an author, is that something that you've always wanted to do, or did you find that this was a way in which you could share your work?
Well, initially, poetry was just an adaptive coping mechanism for me. As I was going through being a diabetic, I found out that I had kidney failure and a lot of other things came into play. I became amputated. My vocal cords were reconstructed using my ribs. I was married to my kidney donor, and just going through all of these things in life, those trials and tribulations, I would write to cope. And throughout these times, a lot of people would say to me, I should share my story. And that's what I kind of wound up doing with all of the poetry that I had written, going through those things.
And thank you for that. I usually ask, is there like a nudge or something as to, what gets you going writing, and you gave us that too. Thank you so much for that. Now, when it comes to the ideal reader, or the appropriate reader for your book, I always ask it this way: would our high school young people be an okay reading group that would be 14 to 18 years old, or should they be maybe college age and older? Do they need a little bit more life experience to be able to understand what you've shared?
Well, no, because actually I was teaching from Poetry Power at an elementary school in Prince George's County called Carmody Hills Elementary. So it actually applies to people as young as 3rd and 4th grade that can grasp this concept.
Now, as far as how to best read your book or your work, I know that many times authors will put the book in a certain way to help the reader along on the journey. Many times it's presented where we should read chapters or sections before moving on to another section. Others have kind of put it together in a theme, if you will, where there's so many pages on a particular topic, and you can simply open the book and start wherever you like. Is there a most appropriate way to read your book?
Yes, I would read it front to back. because this particular book introduces you to the concept of poetry, and then it initially introduces you to the concept of using poetry as an adaptive coping mechanism. And then at the end of this particular book, there is space for you to journal for yourself. So yes, I would definitely suggest doing it in that order if you receive this book.
And thank you for that. That's why I asked the question, because nobody knows better than the author. So thank you for that clarification. Now, you talk about something that I mentioned to my client base, and that is journaling. I believe that journaling really helps, be it that you are going through something or you're simply trying to organize your thoughts or become more organized yourself. Just it gives you a really it helps your headspace, if you will. With that being said, there may be some folks out there, though, that's never heard of this journaling concept. When you talk about it, what do you mean by the word journaling?
What I mean by the word journaling is capturing your thoughts, capturing your mood, capturing your ideas, and placing them on a piece of paper or inside of a digital device.
So I believe everybody is on the same page there. Thank you for that. Now, there's another word here in your title, and that is affirmations. Now, some folks have heard that word before. Seems like there's affirmations and mantras and positive words that we talk over ourselves, and then there's scripture and all of that. When you're talking about affirmations, how should someone understand your use of the word?
Well, my use of the word affirmation means to confirm, to know what you are, what it is, what it's not, in a nutshell. An experience with an affirmation, going through all of my trials and tribulations. The doctor told me at one point in my life that I would never eat by mouth again. And in that moment, I made an affirmation. And I said, I will eat again. And now I'm eating again. So that's just knowing, what you mean, meaning what you say, and believing it and standing on it. An affirmation.
Absolutely. And we really do need to pay attention to those who have overcome adversity in any way, be it physically, financially, mentally. You guys are sharing such nuggets of wisdom. If only we would take the time to listen to what you've done, and I'm sure it can help so many people. That's why we share, right? Because we want to be able to help other folks go through whatever it is that they're going through as well. So thank you for that. Now, I'd like to usually ask folks, when you're writing, there's an emotional attachment to the words that you share with us as a reader because you're sharing about your story. There may be some parts that are easy to write, and there may be some parts that are a little more difficult or hard to write, or make you become emotional while sharing because you are mentally walking down that road again. Did you find that there were any particular parts that were either difficult to write or were really easy for you to share and kind of brought a smile to your face?
It actually was easier to share mostly than it was difficult, just depending on the subject matter that I was writing about at the time. But in most cases, it was easy. Sometimes it brought me to tears. But that's life, peaks and valleys. It's necessary for growth.
Absolutely. And I find that with anyone, be it that they're an author or not, because some people don't really consider themselves an author because they've written, but not in book form. They write their stuff down and share, perhaps on a blog or in a newsletter, but haven't authored a book. I find that most people say the same thing. When you're telling a touching story, it's touching because it's a touching story, and you do have those moments where it's like, wow, hadn't thought about that in a while, or hadn't thought about it since I was going through it, and wow, look at where we've been able to go. So yes, I definitely understand there. Now, with the title of your book, I want to give you an opportunity to kind of explain a little bit there. I usually ask it this way. Did you find that the title came to you first and you were able to write around that title? Or did the title kind of develop out of the writings? How did you come about your title?
I actually came up with that title after writing my first book, which is Floetic Literature, which is a collective of memoirs written as poetry as I was going through my trials and tribulations. I felt the power that it gave me while I was going through what I was going through, so that in turn turned into the title of that particular book, Poetry Power. How to write that poetry even if you're not a writer.
Oh, I like that. How to write poetry even if you're not a writer, because I've heard people say that as well. I like to write, but I don't consider myself a writer. And it's I think it's an interesting place for that person to be, because they want to share, they want to write, but they don't consider they don't put that label on themselves. So I like that. I think everyone has the ability to write and to share, but many times I don't think that the right environment is produced, because people, they don't want to be shamed because of spelling, or they didn't place the words grammatically correctly, in the sentence. It's like, oh, my grammar's a little off, and it's like, who cares? Just get your thought out of your head and onto the paper. So,
That is the most beautiful part about poetry. You don't have to be grammatically correct. You don't have to use punctuation, because it's an expression of yourself, how you feel. A lot of times I spell words a certain way because it's the emotion when you spell it this way. And I say things a certain way. So that's the beautiful part about poetry. It's free expression.
I could not agree with you more. I love the authenticity of poetry, because you could tell that it is the author's truest thoughts in that moment. And sure, people edit and do all that other stuff if they so like, but even if you don't, it really and truly allows you to have a glimpse of who that person is. And I think that's beautiful, to be able to share who we really are deep down inside. So I love it. I love it. Now, I want to ask you, we have about a minute left in this particular segment, but I want to ask you, what do you feel makes your book different or unique? I can hear someone saying, well, here we go again, another book of poetry, or here we go again, someone sharing about what's happened with them. But I want to give you an opportunity to answer that person. What makes your book different or unique?
What makes my book different or unique is that it not only shares a story, it's not only poetry, it's educational and entertainment and interactive all at the same time, because it gives you space to place your own poetry in there.
Oh, I like that part. Yes, the fact that you can add your own poetry. Yeah, I have to admit, I don't think anyone's been on that had that touch. If they did, I apologize. I don't remember, but that is awesome. I like that idea, to be able to take what you have said, and in that moment of inspiration, to be able to write your own. I love it. I love what I do. I get to talk to some awesome and amazing folks. Well, Rashad, it is time for us to go to break. But before we do, can you remind everyone, please, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And if someone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to do that?
Well, the best way to reach out to me is on Instagram at the Floetic Lyricist, and that's Floetic spelled PHLOETICLYRICIST. And you can find my book on Amazon.com by simply typing in my name, Rashad Gibson, or Poetry Power.
Alrighty, everyone. Now you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. My guest today is Rashad Gibson, and we're talking about his book, Poetry Power: How to Find Your Personal Power and Overcome Adversity Using Journaling, Affirmation, and Poetry. My next question for you is, many times when folks go through stuff, when there's a bit of adversity in one's life, you find out more about your personal relationship with God. If you have one, how do you feel about God? Is God doing you right? Is he doing you wrong? You know, that type of thing. I'm a breast cancer survivor, so I've had this talk with many other cancer survivors and those who have gone through, especially physical issues and concerns. How did you maneuver that part of your spiritual life when things were perhaps a little tougher than they were easier?
Oh, I had to relax in it and know that it wasn't happening to me. It was happening for me. Once I got to that point, it was easy. It was easy to cope with what I was going through, because if you don't go through it, you'll never get to it. So that's what it was for me in particular.
And I totally and completely understand that answer. You know, I think there's a quote out there that says, if you find yourself in hell, don't stop, keep going. You know, like just go, just keep moving forward. Don't allow yourself to get stuck in the place, you know, where you are. And I think anyone out there who has gone through any type of adversity realize that it can be a very hard place to be. It is not the heaven that we picture our lives being. It is definitely something tough. So keep moving forward, and I really like that bit of aspiration there from you. Thank you. Now, for so many folks, they take time to look back over their lives, right? And they say, wow, I wish I would have known then what I know now. I think everyone has had that hindsight 2020 moment, right? So that's my question to you. With all that you have gone through, but all that you've achieved as well, is there anything that you would tell your younger self?
No. And I say no, I wouldn't tell my younger self anything, because I've actually experienced leaving this vessel and coming back 3 times. So I would rather live this life flying by the seat of my pants like I've been doing and experiencing it as I have, rather than have somebody tell me, hey, look out for this cheat code. It wouldn't be any fun. And that's how I look at it.
I like that. So no cheat codes. You don't want to know any of that. You want to be able to experience it in real time. You know, I have to respect that answer, you know, because so many people want the cheat codes, right? And they end up disappointed, or they end up still repeating the particular mistakes, or not getting the lesson that life is trying to give to them, even with the cheat codes. I like how you're saying, no, let me experience this authentic life, whatever it's going to bring me. Oh yeah, love that answer. Now, when it comes to the overarching message of or theme of your book, is there one thing that you want to make sure, because I'm sure there's someone out there going, you know what, I think I want to pick up a copy of this book and find out what lessons is he sharing in the book. What is the one thing you want to make sure that those future readers understand having read your book?
What I would want them to understand after reading this is, if I can go through everything I went through and produce this, then you can do anything and overcome anything that you're going through too.
And I think we need to continue to encouraging people, that's one of the things that I say, right? When I introduce and say hello on the show every day, it is my personal tagline. It is the tagline for the show. I have to agree with you there to make sure that people understand that they can do it as well. I love it. Well, I want to shift gears just a little bit with you, and I try to ask some questions for our aspiring authors out there. They're one of the biggest groups who email us and let me know what they would like to know more about. And I tend to get some of the same questions. So let me ask you. Every author has to decide, and I think you may have mentioned it, but I want to give you a little bit more time to answer the question. Every author has to decide, am I going to self-publish my book and, do everything myself? Am I going to hire professionals and let them tell me what to do or help walk me through it? Or am I going to hire an agent and try to pitch my book to the big boys? How did you determine which way was the best way for you?
I did a lot of research. I looked at every way, and I decided, based on how fast I wanted to get it done and how much control and how much ownership I would have at the end of the day. And me being an entrepreneurial individual, I decided to go with self-publishing because it would be based on my own timeline, and I could do it faster than being on someone else's timeline. I like to work. I would rather have work at my own pace.
And I can definitely understand that. I've heard a lot of people give a similar answer, that they wanted to make sure that they kept creative control, or that the book belonged to them and it wasn't overly corrected or changed in any way. And I can see that especially with people when it comes to poetry, because those are your thoughts. It's not a piece of fiction where it's totally and completely made up, but you're really trying to keep the integrity of what you have written. So I do like that answer. Now, one of the questions that I found that I was answered, that I was asked when I was going around with my book tour, was the emotional aspect of how things felt. So that's one of the questions that I like to ask. And that is, you have written the book, everything is, together, it is ready to present it to the world. And you are now holding copy number 1 in your hands. How did you feel in that moment holding Poetry Power in your hands?
It felt like holding my son for the first time. That's the only thing that I can really compare it to.
Absolutely. And I think that any author that has children, they're saying, yep, they're nodding their head saying, yes, the excitement. It's like, oh wow, I've been waiting for this moment, the same way that we can't wait to meet our newborn children, and it's like, it's finally here, and it's like, wow, I did it. So yeah, I can definitely understand that. Now, if there is one particular. Now, let me ask a different question. When it comes to the environment, for a lot of people, they need a space in which to write that is one thing or the other. Some folks don't mind like the hustle and bustle of folks. In fact, they may even go to a coffee house so that they can have kind of that white noise about them. Other folks want it to be really, really quiet. I've spoken to a few authors that had, it wasn't the noise level, but it was the time of day for them where they felt that they were more creative either in the morning or at night. Did you find that when you were in the process of writing that one thing really spoke to you as far as being creative?
Well, the one that spoke out the most was Twilight. 2, 3 in the morning, waking up, being woken up out of my sleep with something that I could write within, say, 10 minutes. And then the other times it's like, I like to write to the weather. Like if it's raining, that's another time. And those are my 2 favorite times to write.
And I could see that the rhythm of the rain, I have found to be a really great time to plan and to, you're right, kind of those things where you're in your head but you need to get it out. A very, very productive time, and I'm sure there's someone saying absolutely, right? So it's like you do have to know yourself well enough to know what do you need in order to be productive. I love it. I love it. Well, Rashad Gibson, thank you so much for spending some time with me here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I've enjoyed talking to you, and thank you for sharing your story as well as inspiring others to continue to move forward. Rashad, thank you so much for spending time with me today. I appreciate your being on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. Now, before I let you go, though, could you please remind everyone what is the title of your book, where can we get a copy, and how do we stay in contact with you?
Well, the title of my book is Poetry Power. It's available on Amazon, and you can stay in touch with me on Instagram at Floetic Lyricist.
I love it. Thank you again for being a guest on the show.
Thank you.
And listeners, thank you for spending time with us here today as well. As always, may the Lord continue to shine His face upon you. May you receive His grace and His mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone.